Hi, everyone. I'm Linwood Pendleton. I'm the Director of Ocean and Coastal Policy at Duke University's Nicholas Institute. And I want to thank you for letting me take a few minutes to talk to you about some of the important lessons I've learned from working on beach economics and beach management over the last couple of decades. Beaches are clearly an important part of coastal economies in Australia and really everywhere. In September, I had a chance to visit the beach in Brisbane, and it was clear that even on that chilly day, there were a lot of people at the beach enjoying the surf and spending money locally. Beachgoers spend money, of course, to park. They buy and rent surfboards. They buy drinks and food and t-shirts and hats. And they're there for the recreational opportunities that the beach provides. If the water quality is bad, if the beaches are dirty, people won't come, they won't spend, and the economy will be affected. Many people even buy their houses with access to the beach in mind. So the economic pull of beaches extends far beyond that narrow ribbon of land that's just at the beachfront. It really drives the economy in the area around beaches and can shape the way the economy of beach towns generally work. Even with the obvious importance of beaches to local economies, across the board, we do a poor job of tracking how we're doing as beach managers. Just as an example, in California, where I worked and lived for 10 years or so, we did a study where we estimated that beachgoers statewide were likely to spend about 2 billion US dollars each year while they were at the beach. This is spending on things like hot dogs and hamburgers and bicycle rentals and boogie board rentals. Doesn't include all the other things that go into living near the beach, and it doesn't even begin to address how much beaches contribute to housing values in these areas. We also estimated that these same beachgoers in the state of California were probably likely to spend or be willing to pay on the order of $3 billion in addition to what they spent at the beach, this sort of consumer surplus value that I know you'll talk about more over the next couple of days. But the truth is that while we tried to be as rigorous as possible, these estimates of beachgoer spending and the value that people place on access to the beach in California really were guesses. And that's because in California, like the rest of the world, we just don't collect any rigorous information about the value of beach going and the value that beachgoers place on their access to the coast. We rarely collect good information about beach attendance even, sort of the most basic measure of the value generated by beachgoing. And imagine, if you will, running a business that generates $2 billion in gross revenues without knowing anything about your customers or your sales. But really, that's the way we manage beaches all over the world. Because of this lack of data about beach attendance, beach values, what drives beach values, the truth is we can't optimally manage beaches in coastal areas for economic value and economic output. Whatever a beach generates now in value, you can bet it would be worth more if we just knew how to manage the attributes of the beach better, if we knew what was the right investment in pollution controls, better amenities overall, and a better understanding of uses and users. The conference that you're going to attend over the next day or so is really a step in the right direction, and I'm glad you're thinking about these things so critically in Australia. And as you think about the economics of beach going, I'd just like to offer a few things that you might want to keep in mind based on my experience about the economics of beach going. First, it's important to remember that environmental quality and healthy coastal ecosystems do matter to beachgoers. They affect where people go to the beach, how much they value their trip to the beach, and how much they spend when they're at the beach. We saw this pretty clearly in a $1 million random utility study of beachgoing we did in Southern California. We were also able to show this in a study of 26 beaches in Santa Monica Bay over a 10-year period where we used lifeguard data and environmental data to try to figure out how beachgoers responded to changes in environmental conditions like diverting storm drains so that there was no stormwater input at a beach, or even restoring a coastal lagoon. And while the lifeguard data were a poor substitute for really good beach attendance, even with this imperfect data, we were able to show that diverting storm drains and restoring coastal lagoons had a significant economic impact on beach going. For instance, just putting in a storm drain diversion at a beach increased annual beach visits at that beach on average by 600,000 visits per year. And restoring the lagoon at Zuma Beach increased visits to that beach by well over 1 million visits per year. Number two, you can't know whether your management is helping or hurting the beach economy if you don't collect good data, preferably annually, but at least on a regular basis. I said that before, but I think that's really the key. If we don't even know how many people are going to the beach and how their patterns of visitation change as we manage the beach differently, then we really have no idea what the effect of our management actions are. Number three, one good way of measuring beach attendance is through internet surveys. When internet penetration is high and when beach going is high by the local community, internet surveys provide a very cost-effective way of interviewing a lot of people and asking them detailed questions not only about how often they go to the beach, where they go to the beach, when they go to the beach, but what they do when they're at the beach and how much they spend. So I really encourage you to consider internet-based surveys of beachgoers, especially in beaches where it's difficult to measure beachgoing because beachgoers can just walk on the beach. There are a few cases where there's a trail to a beach and you can do a good job of installing counters. But by and large, measuring beach attendance is tough, and these internet surveys provide a really good opportunity to do that. We've done this in California, including beach uses and other kind of coastal uses like kayaking and fishing. And then the Surfrider Foundation has extended the methods that I developed with my collaborator Chris LaFranchi to look at beach going in Washington State and Oregon as well. I think Australia is an ideal place to implement these sorts of internet surveys. Number four, I think this is important. Not all beachgoers are the same. They do different things. They have different values. They have different spending patterns, and they respond very differently to local environmental and management changes. So we've got to get beyond just counting people that go to the beach and do our best to differentiate different kinds of beach users. Internet surveys, like I mentioned, are really particularly good at doing that. But you can also get a pretty coarse idea of different kinds of beachgoers using aerial surveys. And I was able to use aerial surveys in Southern California to look at beachgoers that were recreating on the sand, those who were recreating near the sea, and those who were actually in the water. And I found that those three different classes of users responded very differently to different kinds of amenities like lifeguard towers, concession areas, restrooms, but they also responded differently to environmental factors like stormwater pollution. So it's important to do the best you can trying to differentiate these different kinds of beachgoers. And finally, we really can't think of the value of beachgoing and how we manage these beachgoers in the absence of the broader suite of ecosystem services we have. First of all, we know that beachgoers, they're not blind when they go to the beach, and that the value of a beach day is improved when beachgoers are able to enjoy ecosystem services that they really like. So for instance, we know beachgoers and surfers have increased value when they get to see dolphins and marine mammals and seabirds. And we also know that beachgoers enjoy pristine or at least intact coastal ecosystems, salt marshes, and things of the sort. Like I said, some of these ecosystem services are complementary and increase the value of a beach day, but we also have to keep in mind that some ecosystem services that may be important to, say, fisheries habitat may not be compatible with recreation. And so we have to make these trade-offs between different kinds of ecosystem services. So think, for instance, about the value of mangroves or oyster reefs, shoreline protection, or fishing habitat. Well, whatever they contribute to fishing habitat and shoreline protection, they're not particularly good for beach recreation. So it's important to understand those ecosystem service trade-offs. But I think even more importantly is that beachgoing is just one use of many kinds of uses of ecosystem services that all happen together. And it's difficult to imagine how we could just sort of separate beachgoing from this whole portfolio of ecosystem services. So as you move forward today, I encourage you to think broadly about how the value of beachgoing fits in with the value of other kinds of coastal uses, how they can be managed together, how you can do a better job of collecting routine data so we can get away from this cycle of one-off studies that are largely hypothetical when it comes to estimating the value of management, and really start collecting some key empirical data. And finally, I want to say congratulations to you for having such an interdisciplinary audience. I know that some of you there, like Neil Lazaro, have worked in and out of academia and municipalities. I've had the same opportunity to work in government, and it really has improved my understanding of the way we need to value beaches. You don't have to value everything, but we need to understand what you, as managers, can learn from us as researchers and work together to provide that information. So best wishes for a great conference, and I'm sorry I can't be there, and I look forward to seeing some of you again in the near future. Cheers.